Welcome to this year's edition of the Foolish Fish Best of Last Year, and we're looking at the top 10 most essential occult books. Not necessarily the most essential books, you can see that the black books are still firmly there on my shelf, but just the most essential occult books that I just enjoyed more than the others. I enjoyed many books last year, but these are my top 10. In fact, there's a little problem with this list in the sense that there are only 10 books allowed on the top 10, and I've actually got 11 books standing in front of me. And there's the second problem that all of these 11 books should really be on the top spot, but just for the sake of these top 10 videos, it's kind of important to give some order. So without further ado, let's start off with my honourable mention, which is Josephine McCarthy's Magical Knowledge Trilogy, which is the honourable mention. I've picked it because these were previously released as individual books, but of course we got them this year as this lovely large tome of Josephine McCarthy's early thoughts on magic, and I've reviewed this already. I'll leave links to all the reviews that I've made of any of the books that I show you today down in the comments, and I think you may be very surprised. If you haven't seen that review, do go and check it out. There's some very cool thoughts here. Anyone coming in contact with this book will know how valuable it actually is. So my honourable mention, Josephine McCarthy, The Magical Knowledge Trilogy, Foundations, The Initiate, and Contacts of the Adepts. There we are. So kicking off now with number 10, it's Eric Perdue's translation of the 3 books of occult philosophy by Henrik Cornelius Agrippa. Now, some of you may be thinking to yourselves, do we really need yet another translation of the 3 books of occult philosophy? My answer to that question is absolutely, or it wouldn't be on this top 10 most essential books of 2021. The reasons I have for thinking that this is so essential are all laid out in the review that I made, where I compare the 3 different editions of the 3 books of Agrippa that I have. And in that video, of course, I also mentioned that I wouldn't be able to choose necessarily between the 3 editions because they each bring their own strengths. And well, this is a particularly beautiful edition, and it's a particularly readable edition with some new insights into the books that maybe previously weren't available. Now, in the 9th spot, this is actually the only paperback in my top 10. You know that I love my beautiful books, but when a paperback is this great, then of course it's going to make my top 10. This was released quite recently. It was just at the end of 2021. So Changeling, The Book of Qualities by Aidan Wachter. This is Aidan Wachter's 3rd book in his series of green books. It's a little bit thicker than his previous ones, but still a very manageable size at, what are we looking at, around 230 pages. And it's about the aspects of witchcraft. What makes a witch? What goes on in the inner and outer worlds of a witch? And it's just such a pleasant read, an enlightening read, an essential read. I'm going to go ahead and say it. I think that this will be very well received by witches all over the world. I haven't reviewed this yet, but as soon as I do, I will add the review links down below. The links to go and buy all of these books, of course, are down in the description as well. Many of you already know and love Aidan Wachter, and yeah, I'll be reviewing this very shortly. Moving on to position number 8, Monas Hieroglyphica by John Dee, published by Ouroboros Press. Once again, I reviewed this quite recently. You may notice that many of these books have actually come out at the towards the end of the year, although some of them came out a little bit earlier. It's a lovely edition of the Monas Hieroglyphica, a very central book to the Western tradition by John Dee, of course. And all of these footnotes make everything just approachable. The Monas Hieroglyphica is extremely cryptic in its style, and yeah, thanks to the work of the translators, Dr. Teresa Burns and Dr. Nancy Turner, We have, access to some just deeper layers and levels of this fantastic work, all in this really lovely package by Ouroboros Press. In 7th place, we have Occult Botany, Sadia's Concise Guide to Magical Plants. This is a new translation by R. Bailey, and it's lovely. I haven't reviewed this yet. I am really looking forward to getting a moment to review this. There are so many books that are coming out all the time, but yeah, this is a really, really lovely one. And let me just give you a preview of what it looks like inside. You can see that it's all illustrated with the original illustrations, and very comprehensive list of plants and various magical uses for these botanical delights. There we go. I'll give you a full review of that very shortly, I promise, and when I do, I will put the link down below, so who knows, if you're watching this a little bit later on in the year, maybe the link is there already. In the 6th place, this is Clavis Goetica by Frater Acher, with illustrations by José Gabriel Alegría Sabogal. I did review this one, and I would recommend checking this one out really, if you haven't done so already. It gave me a very approachable insight as to what Jake Stratton Kent is talking about. Jake Stratton Kent's writing style is quite scholarly, and sometimes it can be a little bit intimidating maybe. So this is a primer. I think that's probably the best way to put it. I know that some people were disappointed by the lack of depth, but this is not necessarily intended to be an in-depth study. There's Jake Stratton Kent's Encyclopedia Goetica, if you're after an in-depth study. This is a perfect primer, and as such, I think that it's probably, well, quite an important book. So many people may find Jake Stratton Kent's work, as I was saying, intimidating or just a little bit difficult to access if they don't already have quite a lot of background. And yeah, this was just what I needed to be able to get a grasp on Jake Stratton Kent's work. So thank you so much, Frater Acher and José Gabriel Alegría Sabogal, for your fantastic work on making this cutting-edge kind of thinking on the Goes available to us. So number 6, Clavis Goetica, links down below. Now, if Clavis Goetica was a beautiful book, this is probably the most beautiful book, and it's Celestial Intelligences in position number 5. Celestial Intelligences is Greg Kaminsky's introduction for us to the work of Giovanni Pico della Mirandola. And it's essential because Pico della Mirandola is the person who introduced Kabbalah to the West. So we have here an entire way of thinking, and really an explanation for us of why so much of the Western tradition is the way it is. Yeah, for those reasons, I would say very much an essential book. And we've got all these fantastic illustrations by Joseph Uccello, who basically typefaced the book and made it just as beautiful as it is, right? So there we are, number 5. This is Celestial Intelligences with Giovanni Pico della Mirandola's Methods for the Western World for Approaching the Divine. There we go. Oh, just a quick look at that back again, because it's so gorgeous. There we are. In position number 4, we've got the Sworn and Secret Grimoire by the greatest agitator and innovator on the occult scene right now, Jake Stratton Kent. And this is basically volume 1 of what he's calling the Night School. I know that volume 2 is coming out this summer, and I expect that many people are probably starting to realize the value of well, at least of this first volume. I was reading a fantastic review of this book by Frater on his esoteric book review website Paralibrum, and I'll leave links to that down below. And yeah, I would actually recommend going to read that rather than checking out my very first look kind of review. My review will give you an idea of what the book looks like inside, but yeah, go and check out Frater's review, which will probably make you very surprised that you haven't picked this one up yet if you haven't, although I think that many people have already worked out how essential this particular one is. So 4th place, The Sworn and Secret Grimoire by Master Arbatel, transcribed for our age by Count Abaca. Nice pseudonym there. In 3rd place, how could it not be, the Hecateon, of course, the Cassidy edition of the Hecateon specifically, with all new additions and illustrations and lots of new material inside. I've not reviewed this yet, but I will review it very shortly. I'll show you everything that's inside and the differences between this and the 1st and 2nd editions, or rather with the 2nd edition, which I also have. This is one that people had been waiting for a reprint, and they reprinted a lot and they sold out very, very quickly. I think that they're already sold out, but nevertheless I will make a review of this so that you can see what you're getting if you decide to go onto the second-hand market and get a book for yourself. But the Hecateon is Jack Grail's modern take on an initiation to the goddess Hecate, and it's a very, very well loved book and system, very well received, and yeah, many people are very excited to get their hands on this. So there we are, the Hecateon in 3rd place. In 2nd place, we've got Dr. Stephen Skinner's Arsenatoria, the Method, version B, Medieval Angel Magic. This is the 2nd book in his 2-part book on the arsenatoria, and this basically is the key to unlocking the 1st book. The 1st book has got all of the images in it, it's got all of the text, and this is the method for working it all. There are so many people who have been interested in the arsenatoria, which enables readers to memorize and learn very fast. That's the point of the arsenatoria. So it's very often considered one of the early methods to use so that you can then go on to learn magic really fast. That's the idea. And yeah, the versions that have been available until now have not really been all that workable. And so now we have a workable version, and that is something that is of absolute tremendous value. So yeah, terrific work there, Dr. Stephen Skinner. On Arsenatoria in 2nd place, the Method version B. And finally, in 1st place, the one that everyone has been waiting for, The Elucidation of Necromancy by Joseph H. Peterson. I am absolutely certain that this is going to be central to the world of grimoires over the next few years. The Heptameron was already one of the most loved, most practiced of the grimoires, and we now have the origins of the Heptameron and a look at 4 different versions of the Heptameron that we can reference and cross-reference. And thanks to Joseph Peterson's work, we can get closer and closer to the original intention of Peter of Urbano, or pseudo Peter of Urbano, whoever in fact made this technique available in the first place. Of course, I did mention in my review that the construction of the particular copy that I received left a lot to be desired, but that doesn't detract from the fact that this is going to be on occultists' shelves for the foreseeable future. The method is not only workable and approachable, but Joseph Peterson's tips and tricks throughout the introduction on how to make it work for you are just absolutely invaluable, and yeah, I really can't recommend this one enough. So there we are, the top 10 or 11 books of 2021, according to Foolish Fish. Obviously, all of this is just based on my opinion and has really only the value of being the subjective opinion of one random guy on the internet. So many fantastic books were published last year. If you feel that I snubbed one of your favorites, it's possible that I either never read it, which, well, despite my best efforts, is still far from impossible, Or of course it's also possible that we're just on different stretches of our paths and we just need something different out of our books right now. I'd still love to read your own thoughts on which books should have made the list, which didn't, and I'm sure that other viewers would welcome these kinds of tips too. So let me just conclude here by saying thank you to all of you fearless occult authors out there with the audacity to light up the darker areas of these, well, not so well trodden paths in the woods with your words. And also to you publishers of occult books out there for taking those words and immortalizing them in the pages of these gorgeous books for us and for generations to come. Thank you. Thank you also to all the Foolish Fish members who've been supporting this channel and sharing their exciting thoughts on the Foolish Fish Discord server. Your contributions are really what keep this channel alive, and I can never thank you enough. Thank you in particular to the level 3 members whose names are scrolling up on the left there. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your generosity is really deeply appreciated. If you're watching and you're wondering what memberships are about, then do take a second to click on the join button next to the subscribe button, which will take you to a page that explains how it all works, and also what you get in exchange for your support and so on. And if you can't see the join button, it might be because you're on an iOS device, in which case you can get around that by just visiting any of my videos through the Chrome or Chromium browser. Just visit the YouTube website from there. For now, I'll wish you a perfect day wherever you're watching. Please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done so already, of course. And I'll see you soon with another video. Bye-bye.